Hello and welcome to the first May edition of Don Hammond's Arlington Weekly News. We have the usual lineup. We have news, a roll-in about the Arlington Town Hall from last week, community bulletin board, 55 plus news, what there is of it, and a special treat, a vintage appearance by Amy Sue Huheey in honor of Mother's Day. That's our show, but first the social media reminder. You can watch the Arlington Weekly News on our YouTube channel. That's YouTube Arlington Weekly News and the number 1. Also on Facebook and also on the radio at WERA 96.7 FM. Now let's get on with the news. Well, here we go again. On March 9th, 2020, the first COVID-19 case in Arlington was announced. As of Sunday evening, May 3rd, reports show the number of confirmed cases was over 1,100. And of course, these figures are still likely to increase because of restrictions of access to testing. As long as drive-up testing remains available only to symptomatic patients, the potential for the virus to spread among apparently healthy people will remain. We had previously notified Arlington residents of an upcoming special election for a successor to County Board member Eric Gutschall. Since then, the Arlington County Board has directed the county attorney to petition the Virginia Supreme Court for an extension. The resolution states that the July 7th date ordered by the Circuit Court of Arlington, and we quote, poses significant, unnecessary risks to public health, jeopardizing election officials, candidates, and the members of the public participating in the election process and seriously undermining participation in it. The board is seeking an alternate date, preferably the general election date of November 3rd, but not sooner than August 4th. Meanwhile, the Arlington County Board voted unanimously to adopt a budget of $1.3 billion for fiscal year 2021. The stated focus will be on supporting residents and small businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, preserving essential services, and maintaining a strong financial foundation. The budget reflects an estimated loss of $56 million, resulting in a loss of $34 million for county government, and $21.6 million for Arlington Public Schools. Hiring and staff salary increases have been frozen, and several projects have been put on hold, including the opening of the Lubber Run Community Center and the Long Bridge Park Fitness and Aquatic Center. The property tax rate will not increase. One item in the 2021 budget is the transfer of $524.8 million to Arlington Public Schools, an actual increase over the 2020 ongoing funding level. With schools having been closed for the remainder of the 2020 school year, and with the reopening date by no means definite, an explanation for the budget increase would seem appropriate. Elsewhere, Arlington has launched a homeless outreach coalition to help identify people who are unsheltered and at high risk for contracting the COVID-19 virus. The goal is to connect these individuals with available resources and services. The coalition is drawn from Arlington's Police Department, the Department of Human Services, and ASPAN, the Arlington Street People's Assistance Network. The plan is to distribute hygiene kits containing a reusable water bottle, gloves, and cloth facial covering, hand sanitizer, and other basic hygiene items, to provide hot meals and water, to perform COVID-19 screening, to educate homeless individuals on ways to mitigate the possibility of exposure and to inform them about the availability of services such as temporary housing options. Some good news. Flare, that's F-L-A-R-E, an electric shuttle service based in Arlington, has increased their food delivery services in response to the current pandemic. They are picking up and delivering food donations for the Arlington Food Assistance Center's 15 locations, facilitating the donation process. Flare is also delivering lunches prepared by a different restaurant each week for Virginia Hospital Center staff on Tuesdays and Fridays. Although originally planned as a short-trip method for conveying passengers, Flare has adapted to serve the community during the current pandemic. Now it's time for our first roll-in. Arlington County began the month of May with another virtual town hall. There were a large number of special guests. Participants included County Board members Katie Crystal and Matt DiFerrante, as well as Deputy County Manager Jim Schwartz, Police Chief Jay Farr, Fire Department Chief David Povlitz, Lissa Friedman from Child Protective Services, and Candice Lopez from Project Peace. The meeting started promptly at 12 noon with opening remarks by Matt DiFerrante, acknowledging that Arlington County has passed the 1,000 mark for confirmed COVID-19 cases. A new dashboard has been set up with data from the Virginia Department of Health to help users monitor the status of the disease. Testing has been expanded to include 2 drive-up sites with a plan for a 3rd testing site for walk-up patients. As before, testing availability is limited to symptomatic patients with physician authorization, and an advance appointment is still required. Mr. DiFerrante encouraged residents to wear cloth face coverings or masks, wash their hands frequently, continue to practice social distancing, and to be especially careful when shopping for groceries. Mr. DiFerrante spoke of crushing the curve, although his meaning was unclear. The county has reached out with food and housing assistance, providing renters and landlords with information, but, as we have observed before, there was no mention of any landlord granting rent reduction or forgiveness. Don Hammond's Arlington Weekly News observes and identifies an odd phenomenon of our times that, while many individuals and businesses are called upon to make sacrifices, especially economic sacrifices, the landowners are still expecting to be paid in full. Mr. DiFerrante ceded the floor to Katie Crystal, who went over some of the Virginia governor's criteria for reopening the state. These included 14-day downward trends in cases and hospitalizations, and Ms. Crystal acknowledged that Arlington was nowhere near that position. However, she reported that hospital capacity and supplies of personal protective equipment were adequate at this time. Police Chief Jay Farr took over and stated that his department's main goal was to assure compliance with the executive order from the governor. He went on to state that the biggest compliance challenge revolved around the closed public parks, with lesser challenges from a few local businesses. He was pleased to report that, as yet, no formal citations had been issued, but reiterated the message that, as much as possible, everyone should stay home. Next to report was Fire Chief David Povlitz. He said that the number of emergency calls had declined, but that the patients involved were sicker, requiring greater care. He wanted to make the public aware of a triage phone line where concerned residents could call for preliminary help for manageable symptoms, and then, for moderate cases, a visiting service to determine the extent of the illness, and finally, if necessary, transport to a medical facility. Mr. Pavlitz went on to state that his crew was receiving daily health screenings to assure that they were at least asymptomatic and had adequate supplies of personal protective equipment. Katie Crystal then turned the topic to domestic violence and child abuse, calling on Candice Lopez of Project Peace for comments. Ms. Lopez reported that her organization was still considered an essential service and that a 24/7 hotline was still available. She provided the number for the hotline: 703-237-0881. Liz Friedman of Child Protective Services noted that the volume of calls had declined slightly, but that it was expected to increase as the strain of staying at home increased over time. She provided another phone-in hotline number: 703-228-1500. In addition, she mentioned continuing outreach to help people manage stress and a virtual education website. The meeting was then opened up for viewer questions. A question about fraud was taken by Police Chief Farr, who said that the main danger was from online solicitations or scammers. He advised residents never to give account numbers or personal data over the phone. Another question was about personal protective equipment for the police, and Chief Farr replied that a large supply of cloth masks had just been received. Jim Schwartz fielded the next question, which was about testing. In addition to mentioning a planned walk-up site with a May 11th goal for opening, he said that persons without insurance or a regular physician could get help via the free clinic or one of the urgent care facilities in the area. He also acknowledged that there was not enough testing capacity yet to meet the governor's criteria for reopening normal activities. Katie Crystal fielded some questions about tracking and reporting COVID infections by race and/or geography. The data is gathered and reported on a state level by the Virginia Department of Health, and, even so, much of the data is inadequate due to early tests not requesting identification by race or location. Fire Chief Pavlitz then mentioned their own precautions at the fire department, that they had adequate supplies, and then he mentioned that they observed a 10-foot distance within their facilities. Other topics included taxes. Property tax billings will continue as usual, but payment extensions are possible. Home cleaning services are considered essential in the common areas of multifamily buildings, but are not encouraged for owners of detached houses unless deemed necessary for the health of the occupant. Meanwhile, contact tracing for asymptomatic residents is being pursued by Dr. Varghese' staff as well as some 170 members of the Medical Reserve Corps. As for facility-based reporting of COVID cases within nursing homes, that is controlled on the state level, so details are not available. Katie Crystal introduced a citizen question about opening certain major streets for pedestrian-only traffic, as is sometimes done for day-long festivals. Police Chief Farr replied that a day-long festival is very different from an extended street closure due to the resources required to assure safety. Another consideration is those who would be impacted from such a long-term closure: residents, businesses, deliveries, to name a few. At this time, there are not adequate resources for most of the proposed large-scale closures. Another question came in about how to obtain masks. A few solutions were offered: a help hotline at 703-228-7999, asking neighbors who had masks, and finally, an online video from Libby Garvey showing how to make a homemade mask. More questions about reopening received the same answer: it will be based on meeting the criteria set forth by the governor, and Arlington is not yet able to comply. Another question seemed almost rhetorical. How can we be sure that resources from Project Peace and Child Protective Services are reaching those in need? Lissa Friedman and Candice Lopez could only reply that they were trying, with the use of handouts, flyers, social media, teacher contacts, as well as state resources. Police Chief Farr also mentioned that his department was also a partner in that effort. The last questions involved county employees, testing, and volunteers. Arlington Cares was given as a resource. In closing remarks, it was acknowledged that the county had just passed the budget for fiscal year 2021, that the county was trying to avoid furloughs, that reopening could not be expected until at least the end of May, and that anyone seeking more information could go to the county website at www.arlingtonva.us/coronavirus. The meeting ended at 1:02 p.m. Now it's time for Community Bulletin Board, or CBB. In lieu of county-sponsored activities and presentations, various Arlington entities have set up various ways in which residents can express themselves. One such effort is the COVID-19 Archives Project, which was recently announced by the Arlington Public Library. According to Library Director Diane Kresh, and we quote, "The experiences and the materials the library collects will inform how our history is remembered and taught in the future." The library's Center for Local History is seeking the donation of journals, photos, and objects to help document this time of difficulty and struggle, but also of resilience and hope. Submissions will be accepted from individuals, local businesses, government agencies, schools, healthcare agencies, civic associations, and other community organizations. Examples include neighborhood photographs, diaries, journals, lists, school lesson plans, revised restaurant menus, meeting notes from civic associations, and other items that illustrate how life in Arlington has been affected by the pandemic. This is also an opportunity for history enthusiasts to actually participate in its creation. For those with a more artistic bent, the Arlington Library has also created a publication they call Korin Zine. It's a weekly collection of creative works from the Arlington community that documents how residents responded to the pandemic and its effects. Residents are asked to submit their own work. Korin Zine has been running since April 3rd, and the published works have included photography, drawings, simulated and possibly real posters, poetry, and images of dioramas and sculptures. 4 issues have been published so far, and the creative submissions show no signs of letting up. Not a lot of 55-plus news, but here's what we have. We received a notice that the cancellation of most parks and recreation activities, including those for the 55-plus group, have been extended through the month of August. They are hoping to set up some outdoor activities in the park areas, but that is dependent on the reopening of the parks themselves. Certain online virtual events are being considered. However, the only published event is still the Arlington County Fair in mid-August. Now we have a special treat, a vintage appearance by Amy Sue Huheey and her daughter in honor of Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Arlington! We're here, myself and my beautiful daughter, Justine, and of course our dog, Tony, to wish everyone there in Arlington a very happy Mother's Day, and also to bring you some Mother's Day tips, because Mother's Day is coming up. Now, as a mother, I can tell you that there are some things that you should definitely tell your mother on Mother's Day. The one thing she definitely wants to hear, of course, is, I love you. Thanks for giving me birth and carrying me for 9 months and pushing me out, ruining my body, giving me stretch marks. Got a little carried away with myself there. But tell your mother, first of all, how young she looks, how thin she looks. I was at the bank the other day, a different bank than I normally go to, and I had to give the guy my driver's license, and I thought that he was going to give me this wonderful compliment, which he did, and he said, wow, you look so young. He looked at my driver's license and said, wow, I didn't think you were that old. Everybody, you can just stop with the, gee, you look young, and not continue with the, you're that old? So everybody, tell your mothers that you love them. She looks young, she looks beautiful, and you'll have one very happy mother. That's my advice this Mother's Day. But also, we have a very special treat for you this Mother's Day. Now, as we know, David Letterman has his stupid pet tricks. Well, so do we here at the Arlington Weekly News. Tony is going to demonstrate his very stupid pet trick. We have the only dog here in Arlington, watch very closely, who can do the super stretch face. Watch closely now. Is that not amazing? Look at how far that dog's face stretches. And with every year, there you go, it gets even further. Careful, we're going to have PETA calling us right after this. But forget the stupid pet tricks. Everybody's dog can do something. Watch this. This is going to amaze you and astound you because we have silly kid tricks here tonight. You ready, folks? Watch closely because my kid, Justine Huheey, can do some really cool stuff. Are you ready? Watch this. She can put her foot all the way, oh my gosh, around her. She's going around in circles. Is that not amazing, folks? Wow. Oh, she's going for the double. And she can put her foot, her toe, in her nose. Is that not amazing? She can pick her own nose. Now, if you watch extra closely, folks, she can take this straw. Everybody see this straw? And she can use her feet to take the paper off that straw. There she goes. She's going to take the paper off the straw. There she goes. And she can now drink from the straw with her toes or her mouth. There she goes. Oh, and she's doing her tongue trick. She can curl her tongue in so many different ways. Are they catching that? I cannot do that. I don't know where. Oh, they're getting a close-up. Is that not freaky? And she can stick a straw in that and drink. Is that not wild? Freaky. Freaks me out every time I see it. She did not get that from me. Maybe from my husband, but not from me. And then she can take this headband, and she can take this headband using her feet, folks, just her feet, between her toes, and she can put the headband on. So should she, God forbid, ever lose her hands, I'm thinking when it's time to drive, she could just do it with her feet. I don't know. Look at that. Ta-da! And more amazing than that, she can write with her feet. Are you ready, folks? She can write with her feet. And while she's writing with her feet today, we came up with some things not to buy your mother for Mother's Day. One, if you find yourself Saturday night in the 7-Eleven, that's not where you need to be. Do not buy your mother diet pills, deodorant, breath mints, wrinkle cream, or, and as Rob so delicately said it, my husband today, mustache wax. Your mother does not want any of those things. Stick with the, flowers, candy, perfume, jewelry. You can't go wrong. And again, tell her how young and beautiful she looks, and you should be okay. Oh, and car air fresheners. You don't want any of those. Okay, Justine, did you finish with your hearts? She did, folks. She finished with her hearts. That is amazing. Is my kid not amazing or what? That is amazing. Amazing. Happy Mother's Day to everyone in Arlington. And remember, you can see this on YouTube and other editions of the Arlington Weekly News. Everybody have a wonderful Mother's Day. Go to www.youtube.com, Arlington Weekly News, all one word, and visit us. And if anybody wants to come visit me on the Arlington Weekly News, just let me know. Come on, show me your stupid trick. Love to have you. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers.